Hi everyone, welcome back to FreakSense TV. I'm your host Charlie Freak, and this is a short podcast, but an important one. This is information that was released yesterday. It came across my desktop this morning, and I wanted to get this out to you as soon as possible. Now, you know from the beginning that I have been sharing with everyone that the coronavirus is indeed, of course, a hoax because of what a virus actually is. Now, about 2 weeks ago, I created a write-up on Facebook. I didn't put it as a YouTube video. I thought that it would probably just get taken down, as so many that have followed what I did that have been banned from YouTube. So, and based on how busy I am, I just didn't want to put all of that work and effort into a YouTube video that would just get taken down. So as I said, I put it out about 2 weeks ago on Facebook, a detailed write-up of what a virus is. And what a virus is a healing method by the colostrum within our body or within our brain. The creation of a virus is very, very specific to you. And therefore, even if someone were to take a sample of your virus that is inside of you and inject it into somebody else, it wouldn't have any effect upon anyone else because it is designed solely for you. Now, the other aspect about a virus that everyone needs to know here is that a virus is not alive because it is not cellular. Textbook definition in modern science of what life is that it has to be cellular in nature because cells are what are performing the basic functions of life. Cells are breathing and respiring, they are consuming and excreting, and of course they are multiplying. A virus is a secretion. So viruses unto themselves do not have life. They are not living, they are secretions. And these secretions are beautifully done by the colostrum. Al the chemist, who is cloistered away in the colostrum. And that's what Al does. He heals our body through the bloodstream via his cloister in the colostrum. And so he's an alchemist. Al the chemist is an alchemist. And so what these viruses do very cleverly is they're told by the neurotransmitters that are constantly being released into the bloodstream of the body that there is a pathogen. Now remember, pathogens is just a clever name for a disease. Look it up in any medical dictionary and it'll say the same thing. The definition of a pathogen is a dis-ease. When you are dis-eased, when you are not at ease, when you're ill at ease, whatever the cause is a pathogen. So what Santa Claus, Al the chemist, in the colostrum does is that they will initially send out histamine to the area where the pathogen exists. And very, very simply, the histamine rushes to this area where there are the pathogens. And what it does is it brings with it a rush of white blood cells from your white bones. If you have healthy blood and you are in a healthy state, then your white blood cells on their own will be able to deal with whatever these pathogens are. But because most of us do not eat properly and we are not consuming the correct beverages, we're not breathing properly, we don't have good physical health, and we're suffering metaphysically within our mind, the white blood cells are low in count and cannot do their job. And so then Al the chemist has to come up with something stronger. So once again, the histamine with the white blood cells should be enough to ward off the pathogens that enter into your body. But if they're not, then Al the chemist creates or releases these viruses. And it's a sacred, saintly secretion by Saint Al, the chemist in the colostrum, Santa Claus, And these sacred secretions are sent to the area with the pathogens, and then they're very, very clever. This secretion is designed to mimic the pathogen, so the pathogen will cling to the secretion, and then once these secretions, these viruses, have rounded up the pathogens within your bloodstream, they are taken to the nearest exit and dumped. And that's the whole purpose of a virus. So again, once again, it is not cellular in nature. It is not truly living in nature. It is designed only for you, and it has a singular purpose. A virus is not deadly. It's not contagious. And even if they are, I have no idea whether they truly can or cannot make a virus out of the body in a laboratory. But even if they did, and they attempted or did inject it into you, once again, it would not be constructed for you. And again, the worst that it would do is provide or set about to do its singular job. So again, they've created the virus as an out there boogeyman designed to scare the living daylights out of you. There is no basis to the coronavirus, which is merely an allegory for carnivorous, telling us what's wrong with our society and how we've fallen and what's wrong with us, and that is that we become carnivores when we are frugivores. Frugivores, and all you have to do is just look at what a frugivore is and what they look like, what they eat, how they act. They're the greatest athletes, very, very clever, nimble, great acrobats, family-oriented. And again, what's their food? They eat raw food, mostly fruit, some vegetables, some seeds, some nuts, but mostly just raw fruit is what frugivores do. And again, very, very clever, very strong, very, very athletic, very, very slim, slender, thin, graceful, which is what we're supposed to be, but it looks like that we're not anymore. So the video that I'm sharing with you today is very short. It's only 17 minutes, and it is a presentation by Dr. Annie Bukacek. So Annie is board certified in the state of Montana in the United States as a doctor of internal medicine, and she has been signing death certificates for those 30 years. She's extremely, extremely well respected and very experienced doctor. And she went to the microphone yesterday because she's very, very disturbed about all of these internal memos that are being sent out by the CDC, which is the arm of the federal government within the United States with regard to healthcare, and what they are saying, what they are encouraging, telling doctors to do with regard to this coronavirus. Now, or codename COVID-19. So now here are some incredibly disturbing things that you need to be aware of that she talks about in the podcast. One, and I want you to really, really focus on these things, because what does this mean and where is this leading? One, they have still not, as of yet, provided for the medical community in the United States any kind of universal definition of what the coronavirus is. So there's lots of assumptions and suppositions made about what the coronavirus is, but nobody really knows for sure because the CDC, the United States federal government, has not as of yet provided any definitive definition, explanation of what COVID-19 or the coronavirus is. Unbelievable. Now, second to that, they had to do this because they haven't provided a definition. On March 24th, the director of the CDC sent out a memorandum to all doctors in the United States and healthcare providers. And what it said is that assumptive cases of the coronavirus, having to make an assumption that the patient is suffering from something, and if that something that they're suffering from seems to fit this non-directed list of symptoms of the coronavirus, then a doctor is free and expected, that's what the memo said, free and expected to list the patient as testing positive for the coronavirus. So there's no way to prove. You cannot do any, if there's no hard and fast definition of what the coronavirus is, there's no way to do any testable pathology on a patient to determine for sure whether or not they actually contracted something called COVID-19. So that fits perfectly because it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. That's why you're seeing all of these mental gymnastics that the American physicians are being asked to do here. And some of them are coming out very, very angry about this hocus pocus that is being done with regard to COVID-19. So once again, they are asking the doctors to, without any definition of what the coronavirus is, that if there is an assumption that they have symptoms of a virus that they haven't defined, then they are expected to put down that the patient is positive for COVID-19. Now, this is very important because a follow-up directive in early April from Steve Schwartz, who's the director of the Department of Vital Statistics, which is just an arm of the CDC for the federal government of the United States, he put out a directive saying that whether or not the coronavirus is the cause of death, the assumptive cause of death, or is merely possible that the patient tested positive for the coronavirus is mandated to be listed as the cause of death. Okay? So this is staggering stuff. You have a bureaucrat working for the federal government in the CDC telling professional doctors that a disease that they know nothing about because there's no definition for it, there's no pathology for it, that if the assumption or even guesstimate that a patient has symptoms of, again, something they haven't defined, then they are expected to put the coronavirus or COVID-19 down as the cause of death. So when there is no harmful, contagious, airborne virus, how do you get 60,000 deaths? You fake them. So whether there are 60,000 people dead or not, I have no idea. Of course, my assumption would be that there aren't. That largely, as we're seeing videos all over the place now being taken in all major centers, including New York, of hospital emergency rooms basically half full, a third full, hospital staff talking very candidly that the hospital is less than half full and that there's no emergency anywhere. You have been lied to again, and once again, the masses, the 90+% of the citizenry who think everything is just hunky-dory in the world and in their lives have bought this, and they've lapped it up and taken this verbatim because they are ignorant fools. And I don't say that to be mean. That's just the truth. Again, what we're dealing with are ignorant fools. And as Stevie Wonder sang in his brilliant song Superstition, when you believe in things that you don't understand, then you will suffer. Superstition ain't the way. And essentially, that's how virtually all, not all, but 99+% of the world now lives. They live in complete ignorance of the truth, and they're living with complete lies, and as often as possible 180-degree upside down lies from what the truth actually is. So I want you to relax and just watch this. Again, only a 17-minute presentation. from Dr. Annie Bukacek, and you will hear from her lips in detail some of her experiences and all of these documents that are being sent out from the CDC to physicians. And you can see that what they're all designed to do is to create a scare where there is none, to create a problem where there is none, to create fear where there is none. And I'm just going to leave you with this point. This is something that Colleen and I both feel very, very strongly about in terms of why. Why are they doing this? So we have the white hats who are fighting behind the scenes through this character known as Q, who is very, very real, who is very, very brilliant, and who is very much part of what is happening through Donald Trump's federal government, which is the takedown of the cabal. We have this battle being fought between the white hats and the dark hats. And so what we're finding is that both sets of hands are on this situation with regard to the coronavirus. And again, there's a reason for that as they're going back and forth here. But Colleen and I wanted to point out just a few things to you for you to mull over as well about this whole situation that should really allow you to get to the bottom of it on your own. So, one, where do they say that that this coronavirus all started, and what was it caused from? So the original speculation as to the outbreak and the cause of this coronavirus was from Wuhan, China, and that people who were eating bats in Wuhan, China, were the original cause of the outbreak of this horrible virus, contagious airborne virus. And as Mark Devlin, our great friend Mark Devlin, pointed out, that if that was the case, and if that's what 99% of the masses thought literally was happening, they seem to blanketly accept whatever the government tells them, then shouldn't there be a worldwide call right now to end the eating of bats, right? If that's what caused it, and that's what's going on in China, Wuhan, China, and other parts of China, then maybe we should be making appeals through all of these international agencies to stop the eating of bats. But you don't hear any of that. You don't hear any of that because it's bullshit. It's not the cause. But that's what they say. Now, they won't. They'll demand an alternative, and that alternative is going to be mail-in, and then they'll hijack this mail-in because they are controlling the bulk of, still controlling the bulk of government arms. And then they will counterfeit the election for Biden. Now, this is not going to happen. This is not going to happen. This is exactly what Q and Trump are fully aware of, and that they're predicting. Q is releasing tweets. He released 5 more today, and they're all just brilliant. He knows exactly what's going on, and they're preparing for all of this. But I just want to share with you, this is how desperate the cabal is, because they can't do this without controlling the president. That's why Trump had to play that role and play it so well as a selfish renegade, part of the system, playboy, financier, and goes into politics, doesn't care about anybody but himself, because he had to be able to fool them to be able to even allow to be in that race. So this is what's going on. This is why they're trying to do it, and they're not going to be successful. So don't worry. And all of these people, the Ellen DeGeneres, you know what DeGeneres means? Degenerate. L is light. Ellen DeGeneres is degenerate light. Piece of shit. Tom Hanks, piece of shit. These people, Oprah Winfrey, piece of shit. These people are going to get theirs. They're going to get theirs. And prison sentences are not what's coming for people who do these kinds of things to our children. So Please take the time to just watch the 17-minute podcast from Dr. Annie Bukacek, and you'll hear all the shenanigans that are going on from the CDC that are making something that doesn't exist into the cause of 60,000 deaths when that just isn't happening. It just isn't real. None of this is real. And this is proof. This is coming from a beautiful Montana doctor who wants to tell the truth, and that's what she's doing. So again, it's 17 minutes, not long, and it'll prove to you once and for all the kind of world that we live in, and what the coronavirus is all about. And what it is a scare tactic. So thanks for listening to that explanation. And boy, Collywog and I have got so much stuff coming out, including 3 podcasts with Santos Bonacci, another one with Josh X. So we're going to be seeing you with tons and tons and tons of stuff very, very soon. So enjoy this, and we'll see you soon. Love you much from Collywog as well. Have a great night, everyone. Bye.
Dr. Annie Bukacek is a board-certified internal medicine physician and sole proprietor of her medical practice in Kalispell named Hosanna Healthcare. She's been practicing medicine for over 30 years, most of those years in Montana. She got her medical degree from the University of Illinois in Chicago, did her internship and residency of internal medicine at Oregon Health Sciences University. Dr. Annie is a council member and fellow of the American College of Physicians Montana chapter, and in 2019 won the ACP Laureate Award for commitment to excellence in medical care, as well as service to their community and the ACP. She is a member of the Montana Medical Association Legislative Committee. She was voted Best Family Physician in Flathead County 2012 and 2019, and she is a member of the Flathead County Board of Health. Dr. Annie has been a president of Montana Pro-Life Coalition since 2008 and is a member of the board of directors of the Montana Shooting Sports Association, MSSA. She is a mother of 5 and a grandmother of 12. You're going to come and help her with her podium. Please welcome to the podium Dr. Annie Bukacek.
Thank you, and thank you for the introduction. At a time where telling the truth is considered a threat to national security, we're very blessed to have a pastor who tells us the truth. We are blessed beyond measure. So I'm going to read this so that I make sure I don't give excessive commentary. So I'm going to talk about death certificates today. The decision for unprecedented government-mandated lockdowns has been based on the alleged death rate of COVID-19. Is this death rate based on truth? I posted the following question on Facebook yesterday. This is the question. Know anybody personally with baseline good health who has been hospitalized for COVID-19 alone or allegedly died from COVID-19? That was my question. I asked the question this way because if you know someone personally, you may know their baseline health status and some details of the case. And being tested positive for COVID-19 does not mean you have the disease. Even asking the question this specifically, I still got some people saying their spouse knows a friend who's of a nephew in New York. And some who answered yes but didn't give the details, even though I asked them, could you please submit some more details? I got over 350 comments and received dozens of no answers, if not scores. Last I counted, there were 3 or 4 who answered yes and said their case fit the criteria, and they gave me some details. But even those 3 or 4, giving them the benefit of the doubt that they were answering honestly to the best of their knowledge, does that mean the person they described was actually stricken with COVID-19? Inquiring minds want to know, are the reported deaths from COVID-19 truly deaths from COVID-19? To address this question, we need to discuss death certificates, since death certificates are the basic source of information about mortality. The discussion of death certificates is not a fun one. We have all grieved so many losses in our lifetimes. Still, we need to talk about it because they are the basis of the so-called death rate of COVID-19. History-changing decisions are being made due to these figures, despite the fact that they are flat out wrong, based on data that is insufficient and often inaccurate. Few people know how much individual power and leeway is given to the physician, coroner, or medical examiner signing the death certificate. How do I know this? I've been filling out death certificates for over 30 years. More often than we want to admit, we don't know with certainty the cause of death when we fill out death certificates. That is just life. We are doctors, not God. Autopsies are rarely performed, and even when an autopsy is done, the actual cause of death is not always clear. Physicians make their best guesstimate and fill out the form. Then that listed cause of death, whatever we list, is entered into a vital records data bank to use for statistical analysis, which then gives out inaccurate numbers, as you can imagine. Those inaccurate numbers then become accepted as factual information, even though much of it is false. So, even before we heard of COVID-19, death certificates were based on assumptions and educated guesses that go unquestioned. When it comes to COVID-19, there is the additional data skewer that is, get this, there is no universal definition of COVID-19 death. The Center for Disease Control, updated from yesterday, April 4th, still states that mortality, quote-unquote, data includes both confirmed and presumptive positive cases of COVID-19. That's from their website. Translation, the CDC counts both true COVID-19 cases and speculative guesses of COVID-19 the same. They call it death by COVID-19. They automatically overestimate the real death numbers by their own admission. Prior to COVID-19, people were more likely to get an accurate cause of death written on their death certificate if they died in the hospital. Why more accurate when a patient dies in the hospital? Because hospital staff has physical exam findings, labs, radiologic studies, etc., to make a good, educated guess. It is estimated that 60% of people die in the hospital. But even those in hospital deaths, the cause of death is not always clear, especially in someone with multiple health conditions, each of which could cause the death. Clear-cut causes of death might include traumatic brain injury, say from a car accident, intractable seizures or asthma, sepsis from overwhelming infection, respiratory arrest from a COPD exacerbation, ruptured aneurysm, metastatic cancer, massive acute heart attack, stroke, or pulmonary embolism. I will talk more in a little bit about why inaccuracy in the cause of death has declined for hospital deaths with the introduction of COVID-19 testing. There are also unclear causes of death in ambulances. That's a reality. An example would be someone with multiple deadly conditions who gets short of breath and dies before evaluation can be done. Was it the patient's underlying lung disease or heart disease that caused the shortness of breath, that caused them to call the ambulance? Or was there a concomitant pneumonia or other problem? We don't know because the patient died before the incident could be evaluated. So an estimated 60% of people die in the hospital. As to the other 40%, it is estimated about 20% of people die at home and 20% in nursing homes in this country. The true cause of death in these situations usually remains unknown. The death certificate is filled out with the best educated guess. Unknown causes of death include elderly people or younger people with known heart disease who die peacefully in their sleep. It is not acceptable to list old age as a cause of death, even though that may be more accurate than the cause of death we often list on the death certificate. We are allowed to state as a cause of death atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, and that may be our best guess in a lot of these cases. But is it truly the cause? Who knows? Only God in heaven knows. Amen? So allow me to give a real-world example. One of my patient's fathers died about 17 years ago. He was old and in the final days of terminal cancer. He also had heart disease, but was too old and too sick to get heart bypass surgery. As he got near the end of his life, he came down with what appeared to be pneumonia. As my patient, this man's son, stood by his father's sick bed at home, the man died. No one else was there. The mortician was called and removed the body at about 2 in the morning. The next day, the funeral home called and asked my patient, the son of this man, what time did he die and what was the cause? The death certificate listed the man's son's best guess. The cause of death made by the deceased man's son was made official. He was cremated, so there was no second opinion. This man didn't even have any medical training that gave the diagnosis to the mortician. This happens all the time, especially in poor urban areas, casual country towns, and rural areas. In the case of my patient's father, did an accurate cause of death matter? Not really. But today, when governments are making massive changes that affect our constitutional rights, and those changes are based on inaccurate statistics, it does matter. There's a U.S. standard for death certificates that includes a line for immediate cause of death, followed by 2 to 3 lines of antecedent causes, giving rise to the immediate cause, then 1 to 2 lines of other significant conditions contributing to the death, but not causally related to the immediate cause. For an example, immediate cause of death, sepsis; antecedent cause, pneumococcal pneumonia; other significant conditions, COPD. Okay, let's combine the information I've given you so far about the guesswork involved in filling out death certificates and apply it to COVID-19. The analysis that follows requires the presupposition that in today's medical climate, many, if not most, patients sick enough to be hospitalized will be checked for COVID-19. It also requires an understanding of what we know at this point, that most people who test positive for COVID-19 have mild or no symptoms. Therefore, testing positive for COVID-19 does not mean a person is sick with it, or if the person died, that they died from it. To drive this home, we need to understand how the CDC and National Vital Statistics System are instructing physicians to fill out death certificates related to COVID-19. Brace yourselves, and please pay attention, and let what I'm about to tell you sink in. The assumption of COVID-19 death can be made even without testing. Based on assumption alone, the death can be reported to the public as another COVID-19 casualty. The March 24th, 2020 National Vital Statistics System memo states, and I quote, "The rules for coding and selection of the underlying cause of death are expected to result in COVID-19 being the underlying cause more often than not." End of quote. The CDC report of cases in the U.S. memo from yesterday states the death numbers are preliminary, quote, and have not been confirmed. So, quote, the results are preliminary and have not been confirmed, end of quote. It's from the CDC website. Here's a quote even more laden with meaning. Stephen Schwartz, National Director of the Division of Vital Statistics, says in answer to the question as stated in the organization's COVID-19 alert, quote, "Should COVID-19 be reported on the death certificate only with a confirmed test?" Check out his answer, and I quote from this memo of which I have a copy, quote, "COVID-19 should be reported on the death certificate for all decedents where the disease caused or is assumed to have caused or contributed to death. Certifiers should include as much detail as possible based on their knowledge of the case, medical records, laboratory testing, etc." End of quote. I'm sure you all feel so reassured the government is asking doctors to provide their very best guesswork. Not. Fact, quote, COVID-19 caused death, end of quote, and, quote, assumed death by COVID-19, end of quote, are not the same thing. And for those who died from something else and had an incidental finding of COVID-19 positivity, dying with COVID-19 is not the same as dying from COVID-19. I'm almost done, but want to clarify the process with another patient example. This is something that could happen commonly. It's not a specific patient I'm thinking of. Let's say it's a sick patient who goes into respiratory arrest at home. He is intubated at home by EMTs. They put a tube down his throat to help him breathe. He's taken to the hospital by ambulance, put on a ventilator in the ICU, put on antibiotics for presumed sepsis, given IV fluids because his blood pressure has bottomed out. The bacteria pneumococcus is found in the blood and sputum cultures. Pneumonia is seen on the chest x-ray. Despite the staff's best efforts, he dies 2 days after admission. Like I said, this is not an uncommon scenario. The patient was found to be COVID-19 positive, and the doctor has the option of listing on the death certificate that COVID-19 is the immediate or antecedent cause because the doctor theorizes that COVID-19 contributed. Either way, it goes into the data bank as caused by COVID-19. To reiterate, if a patient tests positive for COVID-19 and dies from another cause such as pneumococcal sepsis, it may be considered accurate to say that person died with COVID-19, not from COVID-19. Yet the CDC guidelines list they list this case as one more COVID-19 death, and they go to the next questionable death. They label that as COVID-19, and it goes on and on. You could see how these statistics have been made to look really scary when it is so easy to add false numbers to the official database. Those false numbers are sanctioned by the CDC as of their memo yesterday, April 4th. I have made physical copies of those memos in case more people start looking at their website and they decide it's too much truth for us. I hope I was able to make my point. The real number of COVID-19 deaths are not what most people are told and what they then think. How many people have actually died from COVID-19 is anyone's guess. Again, God only knows. But based on how death certificates are being filled out, you can be certain the number is substantially lower than what we are being told. Based on inaccurate, incomplete data, people are being terrorized by fearmongers into relinquishing cherished freedoms. Thank you. Oh, and I have a little PS. Forgot about. You can't have a true case fatality rate without testing massive numbers of people, but that is another topic. What is that old saying? Something along the line, figures don't lie, but liars sure can figure. Thank you.